What's going on, everybody? So it is the end of the year. It is that time when we all like to reflect on our top movies of the year. And so I figured I would throw my hat in the ring and talk about some of the movies that I watched this year that I really liked, along with a couple honorable mentions. So with that being said, before we get into it, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that fun stuff. Would mean a lot. So anyway, let's get right into the honorable mentions, shall we? Alright, so my first honorable mention is going to be Bones and All, which is from the director of the Suspiria remake, as well as a movie called Call Me By Your Name, which also stars Timothée Chalamet, who is in this movie. I didn't know a ton about it going in. Apparently it's based on a book. And I was pleasantly surprised with the experience. I really liked it. It's sort of like a road movie. And it's a movie that I feel like we've seen before, about these two like lovers, these teen lovers who are kind of on the outskirts and they're not quite accepted in the larger community, and so they find each other, and you've got the romance that sparks from that. But then the twist is that they're both cannibals, which adds this whole other dynamic to it, which I found very interesting. And then you've got this incredible supporting performance from Mark Rylance, who has had quite a year between this and another movie called The Outfit, which just barely didn't make my top 10, but another good one. And so Bones and All is just a movie that I think, if that premise sounds intriguing to you, you should definitely check it out. Second honorable mention is going to be The Fabelmans from Steven Spielberg. This was a movie that I was excited about when I heard that it was based on his life. And I knew quite a bit about his life. There's this documentary just called Spielberg that I watched a couple times. It's very interesting. And so I knew kind of a little bit about his backstory going into this, but seeing it played out on the big screen in a narrative way was very entertaining, and just awesome to see him at this stage in his career kind of get the chance to make a movie like this, sort of self-reflective, taking a seat and like looking back at all that he's done and all that. I found it really just a good, fun watch. Not quite top 10 material, but definitely one of the standouts of the year. So check out The Fabelmans. Before we get into the top 10, I got one more honorable mention for you, and that's going to be The Menu, directed by Mark Mylod. This was one that I had seen some trailers for, and it looked okay, but nothing that I thought, man, I really need to get out and see that. But then I went and saw it, and I was very surprised. This is one of the biggest surprises of the year, right along with Bullet Train. Another one that didn't quite make my top 10, but one that I would recommend. But The Menu was sort of this scathing critique on like foodie culture and, taking pictures of your food before you eat it, and, that whole mentality that seems to have sprouted up in the last 10 to 15 years or so. And so then you've got that juxtaposed with this artist who is kind of at the end of his rope and has lost the passion for why he got into this line of work to begin with. And so it's sort of like those two ideals smashing into each other at full force. And the result is this darkly comedic, at times very tense and just laugh out loud funny movie that I was not expecting. The trailer was fine, but I don't think it gives you quite the sense of what this movie is, and so I would definitely recommend checking it out if that sounds like something you'd be into. All right, so getting into the top 10, number 10 is a movie called RRR, which I believe stands for Rise, Roar, Revolt. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is something that had been making the rounds on the internet, getting a lot of praise. It's this 3-hour epic from someplace in India. Please forgive me, I haven't done my research about specifically where it comes from, but I do believe it's an Indian production. I don't know, I believe it's Tollywood. But so this is something that is a big blind spot for me, is films from this part of the world. So I had heard from multiple different people, you got to check this out, it's on Netflix, and I only recently watched it a couple of days ago. It was one of the last movies I watched before the end of the 2020 year. So with that being said, this movie lived up to all of the praise that I had heard about. It is action-packed, over the top in all the best ways. It had humor, it had romance, it had drama. There was moments where you could have cried. And for a 3-hour movie, It's paced very well, which is one of the best compliments that you can give a 3-hour movie, in my opinion. Because if I'm sitting there checking the time and seeing how long it's been, it's not really a great sign. Didn't really happen with RRR. It was such a blast, something I could see myself watching again, which is another compliment that you can give a 3-hour movie. A lot of people, 3 hours, it's like a non-starter as far as rewatchability, but this is something that I could see myself revisiting. So RRR, I'm sure you've heard about it. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. Coming in at number 9 is a movie called X, directed by Ty West. Now, if you're in the horror space or even just the movie space in general, this is something you've probably been aware of. This and Pearl, both from Ty West, came out this year. It's been a great year for horror, and X is, in my opinion, there's another one on this list I like more, but X is the pinnacle of the horror movies that have come out this year. And so Ty West is a filmmaker that I had seen one movie from prior, which was The Innkeepers, which I really liked. It was sort of a small scale, just classic ghost story with very limited cast and sort of relied on suspense and character-driven stuff, which totally my bag. So when I heard that it was Ty West doing his first movie with A24, which is a studio that I love, I was like, I gotta see this. The trailer, very much Texas Chainsaw influences throughout, so I was like, okay. I think it came out in March of 2022, so this was an early one that I saw in the year, and it just blew me away the first time I saw it. Proceeded to buy it when it came out right away and watched it again, and I think another time. So I've seen this movie 3 times this year, and it's just such a blast. Pearl, which was good, not quite as good as X in my opinion. That's a little further down into my list, but the 1-2 punch of having these both come out in the same year and having them be connected, and for A24 to greenlight a movie that they don't even know how the first one is going to be received, really just speaks to the faith that they had in Ty West. And so I'm very excited to see the third one, supposed to come out this year, titled Maxine. So yeah, this could potentially be one of the best horror trilogies of all time, because X is that good, and I know Pearl has a lot of fans, so depending on how they stick the landing, this could be one of the biggest home runs. So X for me, that being said, works so well on its own in a vacuum, and it's a movie that if you like horror, obviously you gotta check it out. At number 8, in keeping with the horror theme, we've got Barbarian from director Zach Cregger. If you're not familiar with Zach Cregger, which you may or may not be, hasn't done too many films. I think this is his first studio film that he's done by himself. Previously, he had done a movie called Miss March with the recently passed Trevor Moore, both of whom come from Whitest Kids You Know, which is this comedy sketch show that me and my friends grew up on. I mean, this was like the Bible to us. We were constantly referencing it and joking about the videos and stuff. And so when I heard that he was making this movie, I was like, oh my God, I need to check that out. I need to support this guy. And I didn't watch the trailer for this, which was probably the best way to go about it. This is a movie that, if you've heard about it, you probably have heard that you don't want to know anything going into this. Just go in cold. And even though I did watch the trailer after the fact, and it really doesn't give away a lot, which was great, because so many trailers spoil the movie. That being said, Barbarian, I still don't even want to tell you too much about it, in case you haven't seen it, because I do believe it is on HBO Max right now, so I will just suffice to say that this was one of the most... I'm not easily scared, I'll just say that. But this movie had me kind of peeking over my hands a little bit. It's very suspenseful, tense, great performances all throughout. Yeah, you've got to see Barbarian if you like horror. It's that simple. At number 7, we've got The Northman from director Robert Eggers. So there's a couple directors working today who, when I hear that they have a new movie coming out, I'm there day one, regardless of what it's about, who's in it. And Robert Eggers is one of those directors. I love The Witch, I love The Lighthouse. On any given day, my answer could be different as to which one I like more. And now that The Northman's in the rotation, that just makes things even more complicated. I love all 3 of his movies, so it should be no surprise that The Northman is here in the top 10. It's just awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. It's Hamlet, basically, but in Norse mythology with some psychedelic visuals throughout, awesome fights. It's not quite what you might expect, though, as far as the brutality. It is there, but there's a lot of sort of slow-moving parts that take up the middle and sometimes towards the end of the plot where you're just kind of stewing on the revenge that our main character is looking to achieve, and so you're kind of just sitting with him the whole time leading up to that, and it's a little more quieter and more thoughtful, which is no surprise if you've seen Robert Eggers' movies. This didn't do well at the box office, unfortunately, so not sure how this will affect his career moving forward, but anything he makes I will see, and The Northman, no exception. If you like his first two movies and you still haven't seen The Northman, check it out. You will most likely like it. At number 6, we have a movie called Decision to Leave from director Park Chan-wook, who famously directed Old Boy from 2003, I believe, which I have not seen, regrettably. But this was something that I had heard making the rounds as far as, 2022 films that you need to see. So it was streaming on Tubi. I got myself a free trial and I watched it one night. I found myself just like sucked into this story about this detective who is investigating a possible murder suspect. I can't remember the main actress's name. It's in Korean, so forgive me. I will be rewatching it and hopefully retaining some more of the characters' names. But regardless, this movie blew me away as far as the editing, the transitions, the cinematography overall. Just the shot composition was incredible. And another compliment I'll give it is that it made me want to watch more of this guy's movies, which is one of the better compliments you can give a movie, is where you come away from it and you're like, wow, that was so good. I need to see what else this guy's made. And that's kind of what Decision to Leave did for me. Going into 2023, my goal is to watch more foreign movies. Between this and RRR, that's only elevated this to a more prioritized goal. So going to be trying to watch more foreign films in 2023, and Decision to Leave is something that you should watch from 2022. Entering into the top 5, we have The Batman from Matt Reeves. This was another early entry in 2022. For a long time, this was my number 2 or 3 movie, behind another movie that we're going to talk about here shortly, but this was just the best portrayal of not only Batman, in my opinion, but Gotham as a whole. And this 3-hour sort of... it's almost you've taken a comic book, and this is the best adaptation of a comic book to the screen. That whole opening sequence where you've got all these like vignettes of Gotham and like people getting, harassed and criminals getting ready to do crimes, and with that Bruce Wayne Batman voiceover where he's, walking you through sort of his mental state at this time. It was like watching a comic book on screen. I know you hear that a lot as far as superhero movies, are concerned, where it was like a comic book, but it's like this really is, that atmosphere and that aesthetic. And just, I'm so excited to see more from this world. The Dark Knight trilogy is like the pinnacle for so many people, myself included, but if we get a trilogy of Batman with Bruce Wayne and Robert Pattinson, if we get a trilogy of these movies with Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, I could see this taking over The Dark Knight as far as my favorite portrayal of Batman. I mean, it's that good. Something that people didn't like was how Pattinson portrayed Bruce Wayne, to which I would say that there is an easy answer to that, and it is that this is year 2, and he hasn't quite developed that persona yet, which Christian Bale so, adequately portrayed. He's got, in my mind, there's 3 faces that Bruce Wayne wears. You've got Bruce Wayne when he's in the public, you've got Batman, and then you've got Bruce Wayne when he's by himself. So there's like 3 different sort of personas that he, has to switch between depending on what setting he's in. And Pattinson's Batman's only been doing this for 2 years, so he hasn't started to refine all 3 of those yet to where he can, like a chameleon, sort of blend into, whatever given situation that he's in. And to me, that's exciting, because if we just saw that, in this movie, there's no growth from film to film. And so I'm expecting from, ideally, if we get 3 of these, that we'll see a great character arc for Bruce Wayne all the way throughout. And so more than anything I saw this year, I'm so excited to see a follow-up to this than anything else. So, The Batman. Coming in at number 4, we've got Glass Onion from director Rian Johnson. Now, this was a late edition, just came out on the 23rd of December, I believe, but something that I was eagerly anticipating. Knives Out was one of my favorites from 2019, and so when I heard that Rian Johnson was getting a deal with Netflix to make potentially 2 or 3 more of these, I said, hell yeah. And this one just as good, if not better than Knives Out, so that's high praise right there. But something about a murder mystery, when you watch it, it's like you're immediately being challenged as the audience member to try to keep up with the movie and like predict who is the killer. Like that's just the nature of the film, right? Like, so it's challenging you to keep up with it. And this movie, the way it doles out information from scene to scene, it's so easy to keep up with it, and it makes you feel smart by like being like, oh, I'm following along with this, and it's not too complicated to where it's, you know, impossible to keep track, but it's also not super simple to where you're like, oh, I saw this coming a mile away, which is such a fine balance to walk, and I think Rian Johnson just nails it perfectly. And I want to see 15 more of these with just Benoit Blanc and a rotating cast of ensemble actors in a different setting. Like, it's just gold to me. Just keep these coming. Glass Onion, so good. Coming in at number 3, we've got Top Gun Maverick. Now, I had never seen the original Top Gun, so the night before I saw Top Gun Maverick, I watched the first Top Gun, which I really enjoyed. It was a great movie. Probably like a 4 out of 5 for me. And then immediately the next day I saw the sequel, Top Gun Maverick. And I think that was such a good way to go into this, having that first one freshly in your mind, because it is so much paying homage to that first movie in so many ways, while yet still carving out its own chapter in Maverick's story that was so satisfying to see. And, I mean, at this point, you know, the movie's made $1 billion. It saved cinemas, potentially. Everybody has seen this movie possibly 3 or 4 times. It's, you know, just one of the best of the year. A lot of people's number ones. I didn't love it that much because the 2 movies above it were just a little bit better in my eyes, but I mean, Top Gun Maverick, you need to see it. Like, if you haven't seen it, just stop this video, go watch it. It's incredible. Top Gun Maverick, number 3. All right, so the runner-up for my 2022 favorite films is going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by the Daniels. Now, this was something that I didn't know a ton about going in. I didn't watch the trailer. I knew that it was an A24 film, and there was some kind of multiverse aspect to it. And I said, okay, that's kind of weird. But I was down to go see it, and so I watched it, and it just took me on this ride, man. I mean, it was just so incredible, so funny, heartfelt, and you want to talk about editing and transitions and all that. I mean, this is like, if this doesn't pick up Oscars in some kind of category, and that's not even getting into the performances yet, which I think were also amazing. But like, just on a technical level, this movie was phenomenal. And so you've got that working for you. And then Michelle Yeoh, at least a lock for a nomination, if not a winner. Ke Huy Quan, who we all know from The Goonies and Temple of Doom, making his debut back in movies for like over 3 decades. And then he comes back with this. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, to see him, and I didn't realize it at first. I only became aware after the fact because I was like, he looks familiar. Who is this guy? And then I look it up and I'm like, it's fucking Short Round. Like, it just blew my mind. And so if he doesn't at least get some sort of nomination for Best Supporting Actor, I'll be really upset. And so, yeah, I mean, it was such an incredible movie. I haven't watched it again for my second viewing, but I'm going to. It could potentially even move up to number 1. But, I mean, as it sits, and this was my number 1 movie for the majority of the year, up until I saw my number 1, which we're getting to here in a second. So, yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of the best movies of the year. You need to go see it. If you like A24, if you like, you know, any of the things that I just talked about, you've got to go check it out. But the number 1 spot of 2022 for me is a little movie called The Banshees of Inisherin from director Martin McDonagh. Now, I had heard about this probably halfway through 2022. It was the director of In Bruges, which is a favorite of mine and a couple of friends of mine. And when I heard it was Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson back, I was like, okay, well, this is another movie that I don't need to see a trailer for. With that information alone, my ticket is bought. So I go see it with a friend and and I had one of those rare experiences where I walk out of a movie and I'm like, I don't even have to think about it. It's a 5 out of 5. And then not only is it a 5 out of 5, but it's my favorite movie I've seen this year. I mean, I really didn't have to do a ton of, mental gymnastics to come to that conclusion. It's so powerful, the way that it hits you. It is funny. It is sad. I'm detecting a theme with a lot of my favorites of the year where it's something that does a lot of different things and it juggles them all perfectly, and the end result is just this unique experience that makes 2022 such one of the best years for movies since 2019, in my opinion, which was 2019 was a stacked year. I mean, if you don't remember, go back and look at some of the movies that came out that year. It was a really good year for movies, and 2022 doesn't quite reach those heights for me, but it's damn close. And movies like Banshees of Inisherin are what prop it up like that. This is just, I mean, first of all, it's shot on this island. I don't know the actual filming location, but from the very beginning of the movie, it's just these beautiful sweeping landscape shots. And you're introduced to your two characters, Colm and Patrick. I believe I'm pronouncing those right. And it's just, I mean, these guys got to get nominations for Oscars. It can't be overstated. I'm not someone who typically gets invested in the Oscars and that kind of stuff, but after some of the stuff I saw this year, I actually have a reason to watch the Oscars because I need to feel sort of vindicated in my belief that, like, okay, yeah, like, you guys are seeing this, right? Like, this is really fucking good. This is one of those movies where, I don't want to talk too much about the plot and stuff. I just want to, it's more important to me that you come away from this review, if you watch this, that these are movies that just you need to see. For me personally, my criteria for a movie is like something that I come away from it feeling different than when I walked in. And I think about it days after the fact, and it's a movie that I want to buy and put it on my shelf behind me and, watch it again. I imagine a lot of people aren't different. That's probably not a unique thing, but movies like, Avatar, and Avatar is great, but like movies like that, I don't know, Black Panther, stuff like that, these are not on the same level to me. And I'm not trying to make this like a Marvel thing or a Disney thing or anything like that, but just movies like this are like the reason that I want to go to movies and why I love movies is because of movies like Banshees of Inisherin and Everything Everywhere All at Once and, Decision to Leave, and just great movies all across every genre where, I get excited about movies and directors and actors and that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm rambling here. 2022, great year for movies. Check out all the stuff that I talked about in this video. If there's one movie that I could get you to watch from this list, let it be Banshees of Inisherin. It's the type of thing that, if you're not familiar with the director or the actors, that you would totally skip over, but I'm begging you, check it out. And with that being said, everybody, looking forward to movies in 2023. Take care and watch more movies.